as a hater. If you attended the Learning and Teaching Conference at TMU in mid-May, you would have heard a little bit of this presentation already. However, this presentation is going to be expanded in a lot more depth for you. And we're going to do some examples too as part of this presentation with various prompts that I put into ChatGPT to give you an idea of the learning that occurred as a result of my mini experiment, if you will. So in terms of the background, artificial intelligence is an area of computer science that involves intelligent machines of any scale to perform tasks that require human-like thinking. So the emergence of artificial intelligence has become pervasive with techniques that have found their way into everyday life. So, for example, into motion control systems, facial detection, text editors, search engines, biomedical devices, and you can keep going. With the recent release of ChatGPT, which actually stands for Chat Generative Pre-trained Transformer, this has become really exciting for us as academics and educators. ChatGPT is an AI-powered language model that is designed to generate human-like language responses to text-based inquiries. So since 2022, it has taken the world by storm with its fast rising popularity. In fact, it had over 100 million active users within the first 2 months of its launch. This AI-driven learning tool, what it does is it uses a neutral network, a type of AI model that enables computers to mimic and process data in a way that is inspired by the human brain, which can create neutral language text in response to a given query. As this tool was trained on a massive corpus of text, it is being used to generate responses to a wide variety of topics and provides a unique output, or so it claims that it provides a unique output each time the same prompt is entered into ChatGPT. Furthermore, utilizing transformative architecture technique, this learning language model can also process extensive amounts of information and can produce considerable amounts of coherent text like human speech in response to simple, brief, or ambiguous prompts. And I'll show you examples of that in the second half of my presentation. The exponential growth in the popularity of ChatGPT has sparked concerns on academic integrity violations and plagiarism, as students are able to use this model to complete assignments almost instantaneously without inputting much critical thought. More specifically, within nursing education and where I'm housed, the use of ChatGPT software is concerning, as the development of critical thinking skills is essential for nursing students within the decision-making process to implement safe patient care interventions. So the use of the software cannot replace knowledge, skills, judgment that is to be developed by students and demonstrated in their nursing assessments, as this can further lead to a decrease in the overall value and quality of the nursing program. Although this is a recent concern within the academic community, there have been no studies that evaluate whether educators could detect if an assignment submitted by a student is ChatGPT or human written, especially focusing on nursing education. So the purpose of this research is to learn whether educators can distinguish between AI-generated and student-craft assignments while evaluating student work in an undergraduate nursing theory course. Self-detectors, if you will, trying to figure out if educators can be self-detectors. The goal is to have this project provide strategies to current and future nursing educators on how to detect academic integrity concerns with student-submitted written assignments. So what did I do? In February to March of 2023, first I contacted Asher and the REB office to try to see how do I get REB approval for something like this. This is a mini experiment, if you will, a qualitative exploration of one educator's experiences of grading student work. So we've, through various discussions, decided a short form ethics review might be sufficient for something like this. And so REB approval was gathered. So in February, we were able to begin this study. In our nursing course, and I'm talking about PPN 202, which is acute and life-threatening illness, offered to second-year undergraduate nursing students in winter 2023. Students have a 25% assignment that is part of their overall course grade entitled Letter to the Editor. So I'll share with you the outline of the assignment in the next 2 slides, but essentially students are asked in 1.5 to 2 pages to write a letter to the editor on a certain selection of topics, if you will. So we do expect to gather quite a variety of papers on a variety of topics from students. And so what I had done is handpicked 4 students from a theory course, really that represent a wide variety of grades. So these students ranged from C+ to A+ and came from a wide variety of backgrounds as they self-identified coming from. The reason why C+ and not a lower grade is because in nursing, our core nursing courses have a C mandatory grade that students need to achieve. So all students need to get above a 63% in the core nursing theory courses. So we didn't have students below that at this point in the semester that the study was being conducted. And so what happened was students were asked to go into ChatGPT with certain prompts in place and produce a version of the assignment that they wrote themselves for the purpose of getting a grade in this course, and a version of the assignment on the same topic. So the prompts would be very similar to what they thought about writing for their actual paper by themselves. Input that into ChatGPT and produce a ChatGPT version. Now, ChatGPT would not do things such as provide a cover page. So students were further instructed to ensure that I, as an educator, would be provided with all opportunities to be tricked, if you will, by also including the title page like they would on their self-generated paper and submitting both versions to the teaching assistant. Of course, their actual version also went through D2L Turnitin, but both versions were submitted to the research assistant, who then blinded both of the copies for me, for each student. So I would not know who the students were, which versions were self-written, ChatGPT generated when I proceeded to evaluating student work. As a result of this process, I engaged in a self-reflection on my experience as an educator and evaluator of the student work. So as promised, I'll also open up the chat in case others have questions as we go through. As promised, this is the assignment outline. Of course, I didn't include the entire assignment outline for the purposes of this presentation, but you can see a little bit of a snippet. So again, the purpose of the assignment is clearly listed. Students can take this word for word and put this into ChatGPT and ask ChatGPT to generate, based on the assignment outline, a particular assignment that I'm asking them to do for my class, but using ChatGPT. And so on this second page, you can see that of the assignment outline, we included specific topics that we wanted students to select. So students, again, could take any one of these topics, include what we're asking for them on the assignment outline, and put them into ChatGPT to generate a paper and submit it for this course. So just to give you a little bit of a flavor, we talked about or asked students to include topics such as food insecurity, illness experience related to social determinants of health. They could have chosen about care of Indigenous people, barriers to interprofessional collaboration, readmission rates to facilities. So a wide variety of topics specific to our course that students could have selected and written about. So in terms of the findings, what did we find? And in subsequent slides, I will go and provide examples of each one of these things that I'm talking about. But first was writing style. The AI generated text was typically written better in terms of grammar. In terms of context, these are second-year nursing students, and we expect them to continue to grow in relation to their scholarly writing. In year one, these students do take a professional writing course as part of their nursing program. So the writing has evolved. We are in a new undergraduate nursing curriculum. So these students, unlike students in, dating 3 years more back, would not have had such a course. So the writing is evolving, but still, when it comes to AI generated text, it was written better grammatically and the sentences were better structured. In terms of references used to support points, AI paper references, the references that were used in the AI papers dated beyond 10 years, used a lot of grade literature. There was extensive reliance on websites of organizations to support things such as conceptual definitions. That's not something we're used to in nursing. We often ask them to use scholarly references, empirical literature to support conceptual definitions, use concept analyses, et cetera. And students are used to that. So for me as an evaluator to see a lot of websites and organizations used, that was a little bit interesting. Of course, and I'll talk about some of the strategies and how students can avoid running into these kinds of issues too. It all depends on the type of prompts you're putting into ChatGPT that can potentially solve these issues for students and make it difficult for us as educators. Existence of references. So for AI-based papers, the URLs did not actually lead to a source. So even if it used an organizational website or a nursing professional society, when you click on that link that students included, it does not actually lead to a URL page. It will lead to that organization. So for example, World Health Organization, it will take you to that website, but it will say, oops, this link no longer exists or this content is not available, which is interesting. It all depends. If we as educators actually go through each one of those references and click on all those links, will we be able to detect it? I did it because I was trying to cross all my T's and dot all my I's for the purpose of this mini experiment. But again, it's something that we can definitely do to check. I will share with you the latest updates in ChatGPT in relation to these references and existence of these references, because there have been some changes since I conducted this mini experiment. And I'll share that with you towards the end of the presentation. And in terms of detail included, so AI papers had shorter paragraphs, and I found that they did lack depth in discussion and really did not align with what we were talking about in class on these particular topics. So I could tell right away that either students were not in class, were not present, or that really actual students did not write these papers because of the lack of detail on the concepts and the lack of connection to nursing practice, current nursing practice that students were experiencing. Okay, so I talked about this, but let me show you actual examples. Here is an example of an AI written paragraph. I highlighted 2 references, but you can see this is the paragraph, 2 sentences. A lot of the AI ChatGPT generated papers that I got were like this. They were a couple sentences, 3 sentences long, and used a lot of the what sounds very good references, such as Ontario Ministry of Finance, Ontario Nurses Association. How can you argue with something like that when they're writing about a Canadian or an Ontario context and they're using such sources? Again, not what the assignment asked for. Assignment asked for a lot of scholarly references with allowance of some of these for support, such as statistics, or if you're talking about a particular bill. So in this case, it was a bit tricky. They did reference this in relation to Bill 124, and this was the right source for that. But again, I went and checked the actual link, and it did not lead me to a website or a resource. This is an example of a student written paragraph on the exact same topic. As you can see, students did also use Ontario Nurses Association, ONA, and Ontario government, but they went on and they used other literature as well, like Dyer, Wallace, Powers et al. To support their points. They really elaborated on the topic and tried to really link it to what's happening in nursing practice. They used I statements to support their letter to the editor. Again, all of these things I'll show you later can be tweaked with ChatGPT depending on the types of prompts students use. So here's an example of the references. So this assignment, as I said, asked students to include a heavy focus on empirical literature, but the references used by ChatGPT, as I said, were mostly gray literature, extensive reliance on websites and organizations for statistics, conceptual definition, and information to support the discussion. So as an example, from the 4 study participants, so across the 4 papers, a total of 18 references were submitted, with only 5 of these being empirical studies. And out of those 5, the remaining 13 sources were websites of organizations. And so on the slide here, I share with you, as I said, sample of these references by participant number 3. And again, you click on these links, they're not going to take you to an actual reference that it's claiming it's going to take you to. Not to mention the APA is horrific on this slide. So let's talk about another example. As of the 5 empirical studies, only 1 was an actual reference to a published study. The other 4 were not real. So they sounded good. They were what, students thought or the paper included as empirical references, but they were not real. When you looked up their name, you could not actually find that article. And on the slide is an example of a reference that was not able to be located. Participant number 2 included this particular reference as to support a statement in their ChatGPT generated paper. And again, it's not in accordance to APA. For me, APA is a big giveaway. So here's another example, particularly focusing on APA, where the top is what was submitted as part of a paper that is not according to what we teach students in relation to APA 7th edition citation. And then you can see a reference of how it should have appeared in the student paper. And again, it doesn't actually take you to the website that works. So what did the students score and how did the students do? AI generated assignment grades, as you can see, in 2 out of the 4 students, it produced a fairly an okay grade, I guess, for an average student, but in the B range, B- to B+, whereas those students' actual submitted assignments scored 85 to 92%. In one instance, the student scored the same, and in another, I actually gave the student a higher grade. Now, I do want to preface this with the fact that these grades were given prior to a thorough investigation and interrogation of the papers. This was just me reading the students' papers, reading the ChatGPT papers, and evaluating as is without clicking on the actual links and all that other thorough investigation that I did, because I wanted an unbiased opinion when grading the first time. Of course, I went back and again reread the student-generated assignments just to make sure that the grade that I gave them on that first read aligned, and still did that due diligence I normally do as an educator and evaluator to make sure that those grades were in fact what I was happy with giving to those students. So in terms of discussion, things such as prompts, you could fix some of those things that I found in my mini experiment with ChatGPT in terms of the types of prompts you provide. So students could potentially, if they recognize the errors that appeared in their ChatGPT papers, they could have went back and said, italicized journal names or correct the APA based on 7th edition because I'm seeing some errors, and they could put that into ChatGPT. They could ask for specific formatting instructions. They can restrict the literature to specific years. They can ask for a certain length of a paragraph, length of a paper. So all those little things that I mentioned, could potentially have been changed by students if they recognize those key differences that I was able to recognize as an educator. And I'll share with you some of those examples again later on in my presentation. Distinction facilitator, so writing style, grammatical style, students detailing class content discussions. Those are some of the things that could make it distinct in terms of student papers versus ChatGPT generated papers, where students should be in terms of their writing style, grammar, etc. And I know students vary in any given class, but still where a second-year nursing student or a second-year undergraduate student should be, and the type of writing you're getting, the type of language and terminology that is being used, etc. And how does that link to what you're talking about in class, what your expectations are as an educator beyond just looking at the assignment outline, looking at that assignment outline and seeing, what can we do to make it more challenging for students to rely on ChatGPT to generate those papers for them, by including some of those unique nuances that you as an educator bring in the classroom or in the online environment in your education. In terms of non-existence references, these are called actually hallucinations. There is reinforcement learning from human feedback that is built into ChatGPT. So ChatGPT is getting continuously smarter as it keeps going and as it exists. So we as humans are able to provide feedback to ChatGPT, and they then modify this model to be smarter. So again, these hallucinations that we're seeing, these references that aren't real, it's only for a certain period of time before ChatGPT will learn to incorporate real references or references that do exist, websites that will actually lead you to a source. And it's not just going to sound good as a reference, it's going to be an actual reference. What AI can be used for. So again, feedback, providing feedback, assisting with grammar and technicalities of writing could be some of those key strategies that students could be using it for, that may or may not align with academic integrity or be in violation of academic integrity. And educators, so in terms of educator action, looking at allocation of grades, tailoring assignments specific to your class, ensuring critical thinking and knowledge skills are being tested or evaluated in some way, which will make it more challenging for students to go to ChatGPT or a similar like model or software to start generating their assignments. In terms of strengths and limitations, again, I provided a qualitative reflection on a novel topic, but it is limited to 4 students, 1 course, 1 school of nursing, and it does have researcher bias in terms of purposive sampling. So as I mentioned, I did handpick these 4 students from my class. They were current students in my class as well. So not sure if they might have felt obligated to participate or not, but there is that researcher bias purposive sampling that could have impacted the study as well. So it would benefit from having analysis of more students from different schools of nursing, different courses, different programs, to provide us a better understanding of ChatGPT, especially from an instructor being a self-detector perspective. In terms of implications, so for nursing education specifically, it is important that the educators familiarize themselves with the capabilities of the chat box and tailor assignment guidelines accordingly. As an example, nurse educators can tailor assignments so that they can focus on content discussed in and specific to the class, thereby limiting any potential input from AI chatbots. For nursing practice, the strategies identified through this study can inform nurse educators on how to detect the use of ChatGPT in submitted assignments, as well as demonstrate the need to teach students on the consequences of academic integrity and the importance of developing knowledge and skills that remain central to their evolving nursing practice. The hope is to ensure nursing students develop the critical thinking and decision-making skills necessary in providing safe and efficient patient care interventions. However, ChatGPT can be utilized by students to also support their nursing practice. For example, supporting the creation of nursing care plans in a safe and effective manner. So in terms of nursing research, future research is needed to evaluate how this AI-driven learning tool can be utilized by nursing students to support their learning while maintaining academic integrity with more participants from different schools of nursing, as I mentioned. But now for the fun part. I practiced with this myself. So if I was going to ask my students to do this, why not see what were the capabilities of ChatGPT? Here's an example of a prompt. Write a 2-page, which is what I asked them to do in my class, write a 2-page scholarly letter to the editor about, and I picked one of the topics that I asked students to select, food insecurity and the impact on chronic disease, with 4 to 5 scholarly in-text references from the last 5 years and a reference list formatted according to APA 7th edition. This is what I got. Dear letter to the editor, I'm writing, and it keeps going. Sounds good. I don't see a single reference. So what's happening here? We asked ChatGPT to put that in, and it did later on. But again, as an evaluator looking at this type of paper, it would make me question why a student would not even put any of the references when in class, in depth, I talked about the need to support your thinking, thoughts, concept, as you're starting and writing this paper. So again, where is the definition of the concept? Where is the introduction of the concept? Where are those references? It didn't do that. Okay, I said include 3 scholarly journals and cite accordingly. Certainly. So it's talking back to me. Certainly. Here are the 3 scholarly journal articles related to food insecurity and chronic disease, along with their corresponding citations. Great, but I did ask for 7th edition, and it wasn't, they did not, or ChatGPT did not produce it in 7th edition. If you're looking at these references, there are key issues here. So let's include that prompt. Cite according to APA 7th edition, but include italics. I need those italics because my educator will notice that I didn't do that. So now you can see the journal is italicized in both of those cases. So now it's almost there, but ChatGPT did not include things such as DOI or websites, which we ask students to include as part of their reference. So is this possible for me as an evaluator of student work? Sure, I would dock marks, maybe wouldn't even question whether it was ChatGPT or not. But again, if I saw consistency in this across all my students, I'd wonder what's happening here, because we do teach students to include DOIs. So not perfect, even when you ask it to cite according to 7th edition. And this was done earlier this week or at the end of last week as I was preparing for this presentation, so fairly recent. Here's an example, and I found this very interesting. So if you look here, I wanted to see, do these references exist now? So it's been some time since I did my mini experiment. It was February to March, if you remember. Has it gotten smarter? Has it figured out these hallucinations? So let's remember, Sillingham, 2015, Loopstra, 2019. Well, Sillingham, 2010. It does exist, but it's not giving me the correct reference to it. Why? Which is good. I'm happy as an educator because it still gives me an ability to detect, but Sillingham was 2015. Sillingham, same reference as 2010. I did the same thing for Loopstra, 2012. The years are still wrong. So it's getting smarter. It is using actual references now to actual articles, but the years are off. So, okay, there's still something that gives me hope. Next, write me 10 alternative titles for the scholarly letter. There you go. So again, if you remember, my topic was food insecurity. I wanted 10 options to choose from. It gave me 10 options to choose from, and all equally good. But again, a topic has to, a title does have to align to what you're covering in your letter to the editor as well. So, if you're not connecting the dots, for example, as number 8 is talking about, or unveiling a silent epidemic and making reference to it in a paper as number 9 is talking about. Okay, who generated your title and who wrote the body of your paper is what I'm going to be thinking about. Okay, Can you expand more on examples provided in a scholarly letter? So if you remember, through my research study, we found that AI generated assignments tended to have very short paragraphs of 1 to 3 sentences each, while key concepts were defined, the discussion lacked depth on the issue. However, you can simply ask ChatGPT to expand more on the discussion, as I did here. So, you know, great, thank you so much. You gave me these 1 to 3 sentences, but I want more as a student. So give me more examples, elaborate on that. And ChatGPT did, and put in fancy references at the end of each one. Again, the year doesn't align to what it's referencing. Although scholarly writing does not have I statements, can you incorporate one I statement at the end of the letter to the editor assignment? So again, we wanted our students, and in class I mentioned this, to make those letters personal to themselves, to their evolving nursing practice. ChatGPT written papers did not include I, but students can simply write a prompt and say, you know what, include an I statement here or there, just to make my educator happy. And so ChatGPT did that. As you can see on the last paragraph right over here, it says, I urge researchers and so and so. So it makes it personal now, and it's harder for us to detect as educators. Okay, now I promised another little experiment. Different student, same prompt. So if you remember, ChatGPT makes a promise that each time, even if a same prompt is used, it's going to give us a unique response. Same prompt, put in, same topic, same parameters. And if you look at the letters, they are identically the same. There are very, very minute differences between them. So if a student took my assignment outline, put it into ChatGPT, and put in the same topic, chances are I could have caught them for plagiarizing from another student, and then upon further investigation found out it was through ChatGPT. So there is some hope for us as educators that students could be going into this and producing that, but Allison put an interesting comment in the chat, unless they ran it through a text spinner. Yeah, so there are other options, right? But I just found this interesting as a little mini experiment that I did. So in conclusion, AI written papers and student written papers can be distinguished, but prompts can reduce differences that were noted. And I provided some of those examples and nuances for you. Course assignments must take AI technology into consideration when created to ensure students' use of critical thinking skills are not affected. So I'm not saying not to use AI technology, but I'm saying let's consider how we use it in our classroom and what does that mean in terms of the evolving student that we want to see as a result of completion of our course and taking our class. AI can be used as a supportive tool to enhance student scholarly processes if used correctly and with the support of us as educators. So this QR code will link you to my references, but I always love to end my presentation with a quote by Mr. Bertrand Russell. In all affairs, it is a healthy thing now and then to hang a question mark on the things you have long taken for granted. So at this point, I will stop sharing, and my contact information is on the bottom right-hand corner in case you want to dialogue about this further. But I'll stop sharing to have a little dialogue with all of you on your thoughts, opinions, reactions, or even you sharing your own mini experiments or things that you've done in your classroom. Thanks so much.